What's going on, everyone? Welcome, Rabid here. And you guys remember Monero? Of course you do, as it seems to be the coin that for the entire year is outperforming Bitcoin. Look at the 1 year charts on Monero, privacy coin, the OG king of privacy, and it's doing nothing but continuing to skyrocket while Bitcoin has a lot of ups and downs and flops. So privacy is becoming a thing. We're seeing that with Zcash as well. And as we know, in the past, a lot of people have been using the X5. This was one of my favorite miners in the ASIC world. Now, remember, it's not an ASIC. It's a bunch of RISC-V chips. But it looks like BITMAIN finally released a new one, and it is destroying CPUs. That is right. You heard that correctly. Destroying the CPUs. Are you looking for ASIC miners but just not sure who to trust? From most popular brands to best sellers to miners of the week and even deals of the moment, ASIC Mining Central has you covered to the cheapest prices out of any ASIC website, as well as import fees will be low with low tax with DDP or invoice, and code RABID will grant you an additional $50 off your order. Head on over to ASIC Mining Central today for all your ASIC mining needs. Links down in the description. Now back to our regular scheduled program. Well, guys, here we have the announcement from Layla Mining, the new BITMAIN Antminer X9 on sale. Now, it's not on sale. Maybe it's pre-ordering or something like that. It is 1,000 kilohash, which is 1 mega hash, and that is for only 2,472 watts. This is insanely efficient. I got a comparison versus my CPUs and stuff later on this video, so stay tuned for that. And here it's saying $5,600, which is dirt cheap. I'm not trying to sell this or anything, guys, but it is shipping in July, and it's hard to say what this is going to be. I didn't actually realize it had the price here, but now it does, so I'm gonna have to update my chart and everything. But this is insanely cheap. But we got to remember, this is July of 2026 is that this is releasing. Most likely all the coins are going to be dropping, so one of two things could be happening. This is obviously going to become a lot cheaper, but if it's anything like the X5, there may be very limited stock and you're never going to be able to find one. Like right now, it's next to impossible to find an X5. It was so about a couple months after they actually release. So it's hard to say if this is actually going to be an ongoing production thing or if this is just going to end with very limited supply. But again, the X5 was one of my favorite miners. It's not an ASIC. It's just a bunch of RISC-V CPU chips and stuff inside of an ASIC body. So even though it looks like an ASIC, it is not an ASIC. It's in fact a bunch of CPUs and everything piled into there. But the interesting thing is it's only $5,600. That is insane. But yeah, we can see here futures specification 1,000 kilohash, which is 1 mega hash, 2,472 watts. Now let's kind of take a look at, the comparison versus CPUs. All right, guys, so here is where things are going to get crazy. So here we have Monero. Here's the X5. 212 kilohash at about 1,350 watts. That works out as efficiency. That means hashes per 1 watt of power used. You're getting 157.03 hashes for a single watt of power. Here we have the 7950X, and I'm running this at my efficient settings. As we can see here, I have the 7950X here you can get with 4.5 and 0.93 volts, 22.8 kilohash, but it's using 170 watts, which is less efficient than the 21.1 kilohash at 143. Now, most of us run it at these numbers right here, but I want to compare pure efficiencies here. So I went with the most efficient setting, and it makes this X9 look even more insane. So coming into here, back into my actual comparison here, now we can see the 7950X 21.1 kilohash at the 141 watts. It's 149.64 hashes per watt. Now here we have the new X9, 1,000 kilohash or 1 mega hash at 2,472 watts. That is 404.53 hashes per watt. We can see that is insane efficiency versus that. That equivalence, this one miner equivalence about 47.39 7950X CPUs, which would work out to be about 6,681.9 watts of power. We can see see here, this is only using less than 2,500 watts, where CPU comparison for 1 mega hash on the 7950X is almost at 7,000 watts. That is insane. On top of that, we've seen the price now. This is actually to build CPUs, and before RAM went crazy, it'd be about $47,000 to build this amount of hash rate on CPUs, which is crazy expensive. Now with the RAM going up, probably add an extra $10,000 to $20,000. This could be $57,000 to $67,000 to build 1 mega hash worth of 7950Xs. Insane. And like we've seen, this thing is coming in at only $5,600. Insanely cheap compared to CPUs. Now, there's obviously going to be some limitations. As we know with the X5, not everything was mineable. Here's some of the coins that were mineable on it. We have Selvium here. I don't know if it's still happening or not. We have Taboo. I think that's gone. We have QRL, which is rocking it pretty decently right now, but this is actually set to move to proof of stake soon. So obviously the only coin you're really looking at is Monero, as well as Monero and Tari merge mining, or Tari by itself. So that's pretty much the only options you have for this, minus some of the other ones. And it depends if anything decides to fork Monero later on. That's the thing. The other thing is there's probably going to be a faster, larger push now on RandomX V2 that the chat has been talking about for, it's been a year or two, maybe 3 years at this point. I can't really remember when I first heard about it, but that is actually supposed to kind of increase like Ryzen 7000 series hash rate and stuff a little bit. And it's supposed to decrease the efficiencies and hash rate on, say, the X5. So I imagine it's going to do the same on the X9. Because this thing is looking so much better than CPUs now, that we could see a push onto RandomX V2, a lot quicker now. But we'll see what happens, because I still don't really have many details on that situation. So coming in and just looking like emissions and things like that for Monero is actually the 5th largest cryptocurrency that's paying miners the most, which is crazy. The first 4 we can see is obviously big ASICs, Bitcoin being number 1, Dogecoin, then Litecoin, then Bitcoin Cash, then Monero at $182,000 a day. Look at Kaspa's even down to only $139. At one point in time, this was over $1 or $2 million, which is crazy. Now it's down to only $139,000. That is paying miners hardly anything. But yeah, we have Monero here. That's the 5th largest cryptocurrency in terms of paying its miners. So obviously there's a decent market here to scoop up. But again, remember, 2026, everything's going to be crashing. Miners get cheaper, but I'm just wondering about limited supply. Let's take a look at the current profitability of what the X9 could look like right now. So on Tari only alone, this would be on the current state, making about $31 a day right now. Now, if you're merge mining Monero with Tari, Monero by itself is making $28. Tari's only $1.03. Put the two together, that's $29.50. So we can see, obviously, it makes more sense for any CPU right now to also just mine Tari by itself instead of even merge mining with that, because more hash rate is obviously here. We have only 154 mega hash versus 4.6 gigahash on the Tari side merge and 6.6 gigahash on straight Monero. So we are seeing a decent amount more profits mining Tari alone. But obviously, as these release, this is going to increase the net hash by a decent amount, with them being 1 mega hash each, for so much cheaper than building CPU rigs. It is absolutely insane on the achievement BITMAIN has done here. So guys, I am curious, what are your thoughts and opinions on BITMAIN's new X9? Remember, it will be limited to a select chains. As far as I'm aware, maybe it won't be, but I highly think it will be. And then is it more RISC-V CPUs? Are they still in there, the RISC-Vs and everything? Because, they made huge improvements on this. They loaded it right up with chips, and it is massively more efficient. This is not a bunch of the chips that were in the X5. This is new chips that are extremely efficient. So I'm curious what they got inside of this beast here. So anyway, guys, that wraps up this video. Thank you for checking it out. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video around, especially if you are a CPU miner, because it looks like we really need RXV2 to emerge before this thing does. But I'll see you on the next one. Rabid out.